This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey asks me about being a generalist.
Woo! I wish I was special. This is what a Joey sounds like. And this is what an executive producer and vanilla raconteur Jess Vander sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess. That was a compliment. For those who don't know, I am really into vanilla, and I think it is complex and nuanced and special. That is all.
Jess.
Yeah.
Can I read you a quote?
Great.
From the one Robert Heinlein?
Who is that?
He was a science fiction author, wrote a number of famous science fiction novels, like in early days, or I mean, I guess maybe middle of the 50s, 60s, 70s, I believe. But I encountered this quote yesterday, and I really liked it, and not necessarily in all of its minutia, but let me read it to you. A human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. And first of all, as you said, when I brought up this topic before the show started, this makes me think of you.
It does. It sounds just like you.
I cannot do all of these things, certainly, but the idea of being a generalist is something that I find like extremely romantic, right? Or being like, I certainly am also not a polymath, but the idea of like a polymathic nature where someone would be able to, like Da Vinci as an example, like paint art and like study the human body and like design like machines that were centuries ahead of their time, like is such a romantic idea. And it feels like we've gone through different waves in our orientation to generalization versus specialization in culture. And I can't even tell you exactly what moment we're in right now, but is it better to generalize or to specialize?
Oh, this is so good. I feel like you know my answer.
I actually don't know if I know your answer.
I feel very strongly in that it is better to generalize. But the tricky piece is that the ideal is that you're just excellent at everything. Like, I think that is the romantic ideal in my mind, is why not just be so great at all of the things? And when I hear that quote, I'm like, that's kind of what I like. You don't have to be the best. You're accepting you're never going to achieve that, but to be competent, like that is, I feel like my life's goal is to be competent in as many things as I can, because you can get far enough by being good enough at a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had to distill like what is my goal in many things, is to be like right at the cusp between the fourth and fifth quintile at everything. Like, like I am not the best at probably anything. Like, I don't think there is like anything where I'm truly exceptional at it. And maybe there's like random things, like turns out he's a champion quarter spinner, or like he can spin a quarter better than anyone in the world.
Wow.
And like, no big deal. But But I like the idea. I think I'm probably in a similar vein. And when I encounter my own incompetence at a thing, it makes me want to do it, even if I don't like it. So I used to exercise a ton. During the pandemic, I wound up only riding my bike. And then for health and mental health reasons, I was like, I need to get back into doing more than just like riding a ton of miles. And I've gotten back into a lot of things and gotten like really good again at things that I used to be good at and stopped. But then I ran into running, and I have not run in like 20 years probably prior to this year, like outside of an instance of doing it or something. And I was like, I don't like that my level of fitness in all these other domains is much higher. And I feel like I'm very bad at running. And I'm like, I don't enjoy it, but I'm going to pursue this so that I achieve that like 80% competency level just because it bothers me.
Oh, wow. That is something that I can't relate to. Though I ran this morning, I have no aspiration to get better. I'm proud of myself for having done it at all, and that is good enough for me. But I totally relate to wanting to have some, or having the drive to be, to be able to overcome a challenge or figure out how to do a thing that has always plagued you. This was my Everest with pies, where I've told you this before, that it's like I consider myself like an okay baker, but I could never do pies, and COVID gave me an excuse, just being home a lot, to do that, to overcome that. So I totally get it. Yeah, it's funny when you brought this up, I had to go digging, because in my there's no better way to describe it, but blog, woof. I have this blog-ish thing that's more like a log of stuff that I've made over the years and or done, that I thought was a useful way to keep track of the things that I've created. And one of those things, it was less of a thing, it was more of a thing I did. But back in college, I was reflecting on, I was thinking about like elementary school me. And I was like, elementary school me was so much more polymathic than I am today. I was like playing the cello, studying poetry and meteorology, because I'm learning about clouds. And I was like reading books every week and was memorizing all the presidents, and like I was working on our elementary school recycling program, and I was like doing a zillion different things. And I had this realization in college where I was like, I know in theory that I'm actually in a time of life where I'm still doing probably more diverse things now than I will in the future. And so I was like, I should challenge myself to do a bunch of weird just 'cause stuff to just like expand my horizons. And one of those things was spending a whole summer listening to and memorizing musical classics, like who composed them and what they are called, because there are so many songs that you're like, oh yeah, I know that. Like I know that sort of. And then you hear, and someone would ask you like, but like whose song is that? And you'd be like, I don't know. Like I would be so much better at naming a Bad Bunny song than I would at these like ingrained into your head songs. And I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this. Like I will know how to do this. And just like in the backtrack, basically just created like an essential list of classic songs. And that was sort of like the task I set out for myself. And it's cool because like, even to this day, like I'm not going to get it every time, but I just decided that I would do this thing and now have done it. And I feel like that to me is the spirit of being a generalist, is not being afraid to just be like, sure, I could do that. And that like that attitude, I feel like is the thing that I love about that. Like I feel like specialization, there is judgment, like there's there's bestness attached to it, and generalization is like, sure. what if I just did this thing and that was it and there was no point and I don't have to be trying to make it perfect, because if I did, I'd drive myself insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of it is that, like, the idea of like functional fitness. Are you aware of this idea where it's like it's a like a approach to fitness that's like intended to make your everyday life easier or more enjoyable. So like doing certain movements because it helps you like lift something up onto a shelf or pull something heavier off of a shelf, or like being able to stand up, and you can pursue that still to extreme ends, but like the general premise is like the movements that you will have to go through in your everyday life can be easier. If you have a child and you have to pick them up or do a thing, like you will be prepared for that moment. Like that's sort of like the general premise of the idea. I like that idea, independent of, I don't know enough of like who is or isn't promoting the idea of functional fitness to say like I agree with all of their philosophical approaches to the idea. But it feels like that in like many of these other things of like knowing those songs like prepares you like for a party trick at a cocktail party or something like that. Or, the ability to be like, oh, a piece of my toilet's broken, I'm going to fix it. Like it is sort of the preparedness, or, like understanding how your computer works when you run into an IT problem, like allows you to solve it. Or like, I don't know, how to trim a hedge, or like these general things of like, that make your life easier and add a layer of satisfaction because you were able to complete them yourself. And that, I guess that sort of like generalist in your life is one area, and maybe also generalist versus specialist in like career profession is probably a different thing. But in both cases, it feels like the benefit of being a generalist is a level of confidence and competency in like unexpected scenarios, or that like any scenario that you encounter, that you could be able to resolve that, even if it was only to whatever 80% of what a true expert could do,
Right. And that's the thing, is like you don't want to be overconfident and underperforming in a thing where the stakes of that are bad. Like you don't want to be a generalist trying to be a specialist, if that could cause harm. So I feel like those are there are certainly limitations to that, but I think you're right. It's like there are a bunch of transferable knowledge and skills being a generalist that can get you decently far in enough places, or at least maybe enough to know what you shouldn't do. But then I also think there's this other piece that we're talking about, which is like an openness and attitude of a generalist of like, yes, I can do that. Versus, in a world of generalists, there are a lot of people who say, yes, I can, versus a world of specialists is like, no, after you, or after me. Like that feels, and not to say that that's bad. I think they're like, again, it can be really important in places where being a specialist is like the only way to solve the problem. A generalist can only go so far, but the sort of mental state, the mindset has its limits.
Yeah, I mean, there is also like, I guess in some of what you've said too, the idea of like the things that you do to experience it versus the things that you do to like approach, what you said about like running versus how I have been approaching running a little bit, for a few months. Like again, to be clear, not an expert.
Yeah.
But there are like things I can think of. Like I've done stand-up comedy once to say I did it, but in that thing, like a friend was like, "Can you come and do this with me?" And he continued to pursue it, but I was sort of like, we were body doubling, like making it a little bit like safer, comfortable space to do it. So I went and did it, and I like, in a room full of like amateurs, open mic, like truly not like a, a moment of like pride or like a thing to credentialize myself with. But I did like better. I was certainly in like that like top quintile of an open mic room on like a weekday night. And I was like, oh, I did it.
Oh, there you
and
go.
I did reasonably well. And I wasn't confronted with failure. And I was like, I don't have any desire to pursue that again. Like, or.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was nice.
Yeah. I was just like, that was intense and I did all right. So I'm good. But like, we made a documentary. Like I have these like little things where I've done them just to do them that gives me like a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of the experience, and I don't pursue to that same degree, whereas like other things like pop into there. And so maybe that like it's like taking a class like pass fail versus like trying to get an A. Like there are definitely like generalist things that I pursue pass fail.
Yeah, I feel like the ability for someone to not fail many things is you have to, it's like, how much work are you willing to put in?
Yeah.
And maybe can you be okay with being like me, maybe this is going to be one I'm going to pass on because I won't be able to pass it.
Yeah. Like even in fit, there's this thing going around. I think it's called like GBRS, like fitness tests that like people have been talking about recently, because I think they went on some kind of like podcast or YouTube like walking tour. Like they've created this performance standard test across a number of different exercises, and like so I'm a person that just like needs a thing to be pursuing. Where I'm like, oh, I hit that, I got to that point with fitness where I did it, and if I don't have anything else, then I'll just keep doing the same thing, and then it becomes boring and whatever. And so I saw this thing somewhere on Twitter or from a friend, and I was like, oh, okay, like here's an evaluation criteria for myself. Like, how can I do at these like whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like fitness movement things, like broad jump, bench press, pull-ups, deadlift, plank, farmer's carry, 800-meter run. And I'm like, oh, okay, like now I can test this. And that becomes like a way of like getting myself to like keep pursuing like exercising just so I feel like mentally well and whatever. But it does feel like I'm not like trying to be a military tactical operator,
right,
which like the test is created for. I'm just like,
dream smaller, maybe.
Well, so anyways, now I'm going to join SEAL Team 6 based on the fact that like I'm at a pro level for the farmer's carry.
This is the problem though, right? Like this is the generalist dilemma, because when you, and here the analogy that comes to mind, and I'm sorry if this is like a total dud for most of you listeners, but if you have heard of the game Stardew Valley, it is a bucolic little sort of lo-fi game where you play a farmer in a small town, and there is no spoilers, I guess, but there is such a thing as achieving perfection in the game, and it's basically like being the best at all things, and it's not impossible to achieve, but it is very difficult to achieve. And I think this is the trouble is when you're a generalist, like getting okay with dreaming smaller, and because it's so tempting to think like, but what if I could just be a jack of all trades, master of all trades? That would be best, right? You just need to work through that. Like maybe at best case scenario, you can achieve perfection in this video game, but in real life, maybe pick and choose is more realistic for most people. Maybe for some people, they're just that amazing. Maybe for the Robert Heinleins of the world, there's there's maybe some kind of compromise or in between, but
Yeah, I mean, it's like if we could all be like Henri Poincaré or like Isaac Newton or like Da Vinci, but like even like the annals of like the famous scientists, there are more like Einsteins who are exceptional in this like narrow area and like terrible at everything else in their lives. But it brings like that question of like, what, there invariably are people who are like, no, I'm drawn more towards specialists. Like that is like, that suits my interests. I'm happy to be like repeating the same thing day in, day out and getting incrementally better at it. Right? Like you can even probably like look culturally orientations towards specialization or generalization. Like arguably, probably culturally, Japan is more oriented towards specialization. Their orientation towards craft and the way that they pursue that like apprenticeship model and things like that, versus, America's like, I don't know, figure it out, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, you want to start a business? Well, now you have to be an operator, you have to run finance, you are a manager, you're in sales. Like, this is how we do things.
Wow. I was so curious about this that I was like, is there like a name for something that we're describing? Because like what was coming to mind, like the idea of a T-shaped person is like someone who is like a generalist, but like has their like one area of expertise or specialty. Like they picked the one thing. Then I was looking, turns out there are a bunch of other skill shapes, one of which is called pi-shaped skills, like the Greek letter pi. Which refers to a broad mastery of general management skills atop a few spikes of deep functional or domain expertise. And there's this article that I have not yet written and cannot vouch for from a few years ago of like how this potentially is useful for preparing for the work of the future. And I am interested.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to think about in an AI world, does it favor generalists or specialists, right? Because having like broad interest, like if you look at my YouTube channel, it definitely screams like generalist. It's like, okay, here's a video from a meteorologist that you've watched a bunch of videos from. Here's theoretical physics. Here's some fitness videos, a bunch of documentaries. There's, oh, cool, you have dance videos also, like it's just all over the place. But like having enough knowledge to not know how to do a thing, but to ask the right question into an AI model that is specialized, all of a sudden sort of gives you like broad specialty through like the Centaur approach, right? Like the collaboration with a model that has the deep knowledge, but you just need to know the right question to ask.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And thus, if you've been working on your functional fitness or what other kinds of fitness of the mind, you can be like, well, but I am under lifting in this area. So that's good to know for my own.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel like when we do like quant work, right? Like I know enough to be like, I think this is the type of study we should do, or we should be using like these clustering methods. Can't do any of them. Like, but you defer to the people who are capable of doing those things and their expertise. But I'm like, we had to solve this problem. It feels like we should be doing X, Y, like this needs a factor analysis. This needs like a max diff study, like whatever. Like, enough to deploy it in the right place, but don't,
but conduct it a different question. Yeah.
Like an orchestra conductor can't play all of the instruments, but they, in theory, like know how to deploy all of the instruments to make a beautiful sound.
Whoa. Wow. And thus we all find a way to contribute.
Is this just like the dream of like the trope of being like an idea person? Like,
maybe. No, but I
or,
think
or is this the world of, we're moving into the world of idea people, like, I don't know.
No, but I think the premise of the original quote that you shared is the exact opposite of that. It's like, no, maybe as a conductor, you should know how to play some instruments. Maybe you don't need to play all of them, but you should definitely know how to play some of them. And like, if you're gonna do X, like you should probably know how to do Y. I think that feels like what I'm taking away from this. That perfection may not need to be the goal in real life, but trying some stuff and being humble enough to know your limits is actually the true ambition of being a successful generalist.
Yeah. Can I ask one last question?
Yeah.
It is generalist just a result of like curiosity is too strong? Like, is that always the like how it winds up working out? Like, if you're just more curious than you are capable, do you like wind up in being a generalist? Like, or at least I feel like that's why I'm in that space of like, the other day, Becky was like, what is this 6767 thing going on? And I was like, oh, the first time I encountered it, I went down a hole to be like, where's the origin of this thing? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And I like started to explain. She's like, of course you looked it up. Like, and she was not saying it mean, but it was like, yes, of course I did.
Right. I feel like there's something to that in the idea of you can't help but actually go further than just being aware of a thing's existence or something. It's like, actually, what if I tried that? What if I did something? But to me, that action orientation feels like the most important piece, actually, which is like, it isn't enough to know. It is also important to know a certain amount, be able to do a certain amount, like that it's actually more like a goal, like a goal, and now a goal emerged. Like, it can't just be curiosity for the thought's sake of like, that's interesting. It's like, no. I will now, and now I will be able to do this amount of that.
Yeah.
The next step.
Well, can you bring us to our generalist corner?
Oh, did I not already do it? Come on. Don't you think that we're there? Don't you think that we're all just trying to be like mediocre at lots of things? Isn't that just the whole point?
This is the human condition.
Isn't that just it? God. No. Being a generalist requires curiosity, openness, and humility to know that you should keep going, but also to know when you should stop and try something new.
And we've determined it's better to be a generalist as a poll of 2.
Look, specialists
sample
come
of
at
n
us.
equals 2.
Yeah, exactly. All the specialists come knocking down our door of like, hey, how dare you? Look, if we had a world of generalists, then we would, again, have a lot of issues. So good thing that we have all of us so that other people who are way better at stuff than us can do the SEAL operations, etc.
Etc. The deep science. Build a quantum computer.
Cool. Thanks so much for doing all the hard stuff, because our stuff is way more fun. Don't tell them, Joey. If you tell them, then they're going to realize that being a generalist is way more fun. Oh, no.
You guys, interstitial tissue is now an organ. We're being recognized as generalists.
Okay. This was fun.
Well, we did it. Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by And One Other Thing.
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and polymath, Jess Vander.
Thanks. We'd also like to thank sound engineer and somebody who could just do it, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and wunderkind, Les Jacobs.
And thank you to our production crew and the people who can do it all. Sarah Gilbert, Nora Mestrich, Christy Jensen, Amanda Medina, and Amy Water.
As always, thanks, Ellen.
Thanks.
Special thanks to people making interesting YouTube videos to sate my curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to those people. Special thanks to a friend who, did I ever tell you about this friend, Emily Bice, who is a writer and has a Substack called 129 Ways to Get a Life. And it was inspired by this article she found written in 1958 in a now defunct women's magazine, published this article called 129 Ways to Get a Husband. And each of the things in it were like, ride the airport bus back and forth from the airport, like get your hunting license, stand on a busy street corner with a lasso. There's like all kinds of very random and specific things, and she's been working through doing those things and writing about it. And I just think that is the funniest, best thing ever, and is kind of like the perfect spirit of, like, there's the Robert Heinlein version of a list of things you should go do, and then there's like really hilarious and fascinating other lists of things you could go do. Basically lists. Special thanks to lists and doing the things on those lists.
Yeah, I'm realizing like I should have given Robert Heinlein's work a little bit more of a shout out. He wrote such novels as Starship Troopers, Stranger in a Strange Land,
Well,
The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, Time Enough for Love, Orphans of the Sky. He wrote, I think he was a quite prolific author of, I'm trying to see if I can get like a total book count, but in that same vein of like his contemporaries were like Philip K. Dick, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, folks like that.
wow. So basically a ledge.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, he was a legendary anti-fascist, as that's what Starship Troopers was ultimately about. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Are the Starship Troopers actually good? Tough to say.
Tough to say. Well, this is fun.
Well, we did it.
We
Love
did
you, mean
it.
it. Bye.
Okay, bye.